Hello again. Time then for the press preview. A first look at what is on tomorrow's front pages. Starting a little later tonight because of this special edition of Sky News at 10. Taking a look at the headlines with me, the former Defence Minister, Anna Soubry, and the Daily Mail's Deputy Political Editor, John Stevens. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. Evening to you both. We'll speak in a moment. We'll just check out those front pages for you. Of course, just one story is dominating. The Guardian proclaims Putin invades, picturing a woman with a bandaged head and a blooded face after an airstrike. The same woman is on the front of the Metro, which likens President Putin to Hitler, with the headline, War in Europe. Likewise, the Mirror, their headline, Her blood, his hands. The Sun has a nearly identical front page to the Mirror. In fact, the Star also going with the Hitler comparison. Similarly, the Express says the invasion redraws the map of Europe in blood. The Times says today is a dark day for Europe. Here's the FT declaring Putin's forces storm Ukraine. The Telegraph calls it a new Cold War. The Eye tells the story of what it calls Ukraine's agony. And tomorrow's Mail reports that Putin intends for Russian forces to seize the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, within days. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code that you can see on your screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch and listen to us. And I'm joined now by Anna Soubry and John Stevens. What a day it has been. Anna, let's start with the front of the Financial Times. An image there from the early hours of this morning, one of the airstrikes that took place close to Kiev. So depressing. Just sum things up for us the last 24 hours.
I still think, like many people, I'm in shock and disbelief. I mean, I know, of course, that this has been hugely talked about and largely predicted, and it looks like the intelligence forces have got it right. But for it actually to happen, I just don't think we just couldn't believe that this could happen in our lifetime. And it has happened. And we can see the consequences of what Putin has chosen to do. And as the FT says, it's the largest military advance since the Second World War. And it goes on to describe the scale of the advance. And obviously, you've been reporting all day and all through this evening on how Putin's forces have gathered effectively around the Ukraine and invaded it in so many different ways and with devastating consequences. And I obviously heard what Deborah Haynes had to say. And her words were chilling. And I think that's how we are all today, chilled, horrified, disgusted, and I think firm in our resolve that we must now take serious action against Putin and make it very clear we won't tolerate this.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those sanctions in a moment. John, the front of The Guardian shows a picture of a poor woman who was injured in the street in East Ukraine after one of those airstrikes. Her picture on the front of a number of papers, actually. I mean, do you think we underestimated Putin? Was he intending on a full-on invasion all along?
I think the last few weeks, Putin's clearly been playing a game with the West. He's had all these leaders and foreign secretaries, etc., travelling to Moscow to come and speak to him. We've seen all those pictures of him meeting leaders at the other far ends of the table. But it looks like whatever the West had done, that this was his plan all along. And as Anna said, even though we'd been warned that this was what he was planning to do, that he was going to launch a full-scale invasion, it's very much different talking about it and then actually waking up to the news and seeing that the sheer scale of this, with the air, land and sea attacks that he has carried out. And obviously these striking pictures that we're beginning to see on the front pages of all the different newspapers is about the human costs of this and how so many Ukrainians must just be in absolute terror that this has put them in complete danger. And, Putin was out again lying today, saying that this was just about taking military bases, etc., that there weren't going to be any reason that Ukrainian civilians needed to be concerned. But here we've seen a blast, a missile between two 5-story apartments and, people's homes destroyed, people's lives ruined. And no wonder so many Ukrainians are trying to escape the country.
Yeah, and today, sadly, just the start. Anna, let's look at the front of the Metro, summing it up there, really. War in Europe. Putin branded 21st century Hitler as he invades Ukraine. And of course, Putin today said that this is all about denazifying Ukraine, which was a rather bizarre comment.
Yeah, and totally baseless. I mean, it's just an absolute nonsense. The person who's behaving like a fascist dictator is Putin, and I think it's really important that we absolutely lay the blame not with the Russian people but with Putin. This is his war. These are his actions, and he is behaving in this disgraceful way. And to claim that somehow he's doing something even vaguely noble is just the biggest load of nonsense. It insults everybody's intelligence.
John, the front of the Telegraph, new Cold War as Putin strikes. Many are going to be concerned that Putin now is of the mindset that Ukraine is just the start. I mean, how far is he going to go?
Yeah, and this is the really concerning thing. And there was an ominous warning from President Biden tonight. He was saying that it looks like Putin is trying to recreate the Soviet Union, and it looks like his ambitions could go far beyond Ukraine. And I think that's the really difficult thing for the West in knowing what to do. And I think that's why it's so important that the West isn't soft with the sanctions, that we finally start to see the tough action that matches the rhetoric that we've had from the last few months. And we can't just have a repeat of the last 10 years when Putin's repeatedly taken actions, such as in Crimea, with the downing of the MH17 jet, with the Skripals in Salisbury and the killing of Dawn Sturgis. And time after time after time, actually, the sanctions that the West has put on Putin has been quite feeble. I think this time we need to show that we will take all action that we possibly can so that Putin has no choice but to stop this.
Yeah, Anna, front of the eye, Ukraine's agony, another picture there, heartbreaking picture of somebody clearly in a lot of distress. But the problem is Russia has nuclear weapons, and there's only so far we're going to want to push him, isn't there?
Absolutely, and of course he knows that. And he also knows through what happened with Afghanistan, for example, and the withdrawal of the American troops and the failure of anybody to do the right thing in Afghanistan. He knows that none of us want war. I mean, the people not just of America, our own country, and I think widely, do not want war. I think we live in very different times, even from the 80s, which obviously people like me remember, when I think people under the leadership of, say, Thatcher and Reagan, there was more of a willingness to be the police officers of freedom and democracy in the world. And I think a lot of that has now gone. And Putin knows all of that. And my huge fear is that this is indeed part of a plan. I mean, after all, he has secured, in effect, 14 years more in power, in theory. And although he's 69, he intends to use those years to execute his plan. And I think, in the past, I think we all looked at this and I think we were complacent, and I put my hands up as a member of a government in the last 10 years. I think we've been too complacent. And when people said, he's got this plan, effectively to reinstate the old Soviet Union, I think we all poo-pooed it away. And I think it's true. I think it's real. And that's why we have got to stand up to him, and we've got to do the right thing now.
OK. Anna, John, I know you'll stay with us for the next hour or so. Thank you very much for the moment.